Joe Burrow is coming off his best statistical season yet. Can he get better? Joe thinks so. Hear from him, plus plenty of thoughts on the schedule and Andrew Whitworth making an impact for offensive linemen everywhere. Hi again, everyone, and welcome into Enter the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He is Andrew Fox Miller. You can catch us every single Tuesday at 8 Eastern on the YouTube channel Cincinnati Bengals Talk, where over 55,000 Bengals fans have hit that subscribe button. Also, check us out wherever you get your podcasts. We are brought to you by Garage Beer and part of the Big Play Network, and catch us weekly on FanDuel Sports Network as well. And Andrew, let's start with Joe Burrow. As we know, he talked last week, said a bunch of different things, and I'm sure these clips are going to be used really all offseason long. I'm not sure we're going to hear from Joe again until training camp. But after throwing for nearly 5,000 yards, 43 touchdowns, which is a Bengals record, only 9 picks, it just had a great year. Joe Burrow was awesome last year, and yet he thinks that he can get better. Here's Joe on what he's going to do for an encore.
Let's try to get better. You know, stats are going to fluctuate year in and year out. Maybe I have a better statistical year, maybe I don't. I'm not really too worried about that, but try to come out and win games, do what I can to win games, be better as a quarterback and as a player. You know, I think that's attainable, and that's the goal, the milestone year in and year out is just try to get better.
Where can you get better?
You can get better everywhere. Doesn't matter how good you were in any area. There's always room to be better in certain spots, certain aspects of the game. So I'm excited about that opportunity.
Is it realistic for Joe to be better this year? Are you expecting him, Andrew, to be better in 2025 than he was last season?
I mean, first of all, he's right. You can get better anywhere. That's just a fact. So I'm not going to argue that one. Could he have answered that question a little bit better, more specifically? Sure, maybe. But
could that answer have been better? Yes.
Yeah. But I look at it this way, and how many off seasons now do we kind of tally this up, right? He's now over a year removed from wrist surgery. It's always been something, hasn't it? 2020, you know, you're navigating COVID protocols and a season-ending knee injury. 2021, you're recovering from that injury. 2022 was ruptured appendix. 2023 was calf strain and eventual season-ending injury to his wrists that we just mentioned. And 2024 was him trying to figure out how to operate, how to recover from that wrist injury. 2025 is nothing. So do I think Joe Burrow could improve? I think that we haven't seen his ceiling because of all the things I just mentioned year after year. And now it's relatively a clean slate as far as his health is concerned. Let's go, right? And I think Joe's probably thinking the same thing. He mentioned how great he feels. So this is kind of the first time in his NFL career that I feel like you're going into a regular season where now we actually can see the ceiling, you know? And so, yeah, I think he can get better in a lot of areas. Why not?
Well, I think Bengals fans are going to tell you to knock on wood, and that is wood, because the appendix happened right before training camp. Obviously, the calf happened during training camp. And yet you're right. You're 100% right. Joe Burrow should be entering his prime right now, 28. He's 28 years old. He's seen everything, pretty much everything. Like, you get to a point where as a quarterback, you're going to see everything. And I think he's pretty much there from a defensive standpoint, how they're going to be able to stop him or slow him down and slow this offense down. So he should have seen and done virtually everything, which means he should be able to find an answer for everything very, very quickly. Tom Brady-esque, Peyton Manning-esque, like that's what you're looking for. And the same thing goes for the pieces around him. I think that that's a big part of this. T. Higgins, I don't think we've seen the best of T. Higgins yet. We sure as hell better not have seen the best of T. Higgins yet. Like, I think he's entering his prime right now. Jamar, as good as he was, as great as he was last year, is there another level? And so the same thing goes for Joe. I totally buy that he can play even better. I buy this, that, you know, there's talks about Super Bowls and things like that, you know, and anytime you have a team led by Joe Burrow, well, I think an MVP is in the future. I think he's going to be league MVP in his career. Maybe it's this year. But for me, yes, he can get better. But man, oh man, if he just plays at the level consistently that he did last year, and the pieces around him are a little bit better, because he was better than Pat Mahomes last year. That's going to be a take for some, but I don't think it's a take at all. I think if you would have put Joe Burrow in Kansas City with Andy Reid and everything that they had there infrastructure-wise, the Chiefs would have handled business again. I think he's certainly better. I'm just going to go with the Super Bowl quarterbacks, better than Jalen Hurts. I don't think anyone debates that. I think there would be some debate about Josh Allen. Okay, that's fine. I also think that way more NFL franchises would take Joe Burrow over Lamar Jackson than Ravens fans would want to admit. And it's because of stylistically how it is, how it works, and how you have to set up your offense. Like the Bengals offense is going to be ready to go and ready to compete in the playoffs. Do they have to get there? Absolutely. That means they got to get the pieces around Joe a bit better. But can he be better? Yes. And if he does take that next step and the Bengals do win games like he just said, we might be talking about an MVP season for Joe.
Yeah, and we're saying all of this, and I can hear the comments from people. Yeah, but this offensive line, so worried about the offensive line. What are they going to do about guard? Joe can't be his best with this offensive line. I can just hear it. And I understand that. But at some point, yes, O-line needs to do its thing. But if we're talking about Joe specifically, that's probably an area where he can get better also. Understanding the timing, understanding the limitations of what he has in front of him and not trying to push things. I'm not trying to get too specific in particular with it, but it all goes hand in hand. As a unit, they need to figure that out. And that's an area that Joe can elevate that entire offensive line and that offense. I'm not going to use that as an excuse. It's unfortunate that it will always be one if things don't go as planned. I feel like it usually is, but I think this is as good of an opportunity as any, regardless of the O-line situation, for Joe to reach MVP level caliber play and get those awards.
Well, you have your 2 tackle spots shored up. You feel great about Orlando Brown Jr. I think you feel great about Amarius Mims going into year 2. Ted Karras, if I'm him, I try to get another 1-year extension like he did last year. Played great. I think he had his best year in the NFL last season. And so you have 3 spots that are ready to go. And so, yeah, there are 2 spots that are open. I get the concern offensive line-wise, and it's annoying. Totally agree. I would have done more at guard. I would have.
Yeah.
If they gave me the keys today, I would do more at guard. But this offensive line can still be solid. And part of that, and this is where it gets interesting when it comes to the evolution of the game. And when Joe mentioned the statistical part, he may have his best season and throw for 4,600 yards instead of 4,900 yards like he did last year, for 37 touchdowns instead of 43 touchdowns. What if they have a real run game? Like a real run game. Not a Chase Brown's got a bunch of yards and fantasy points, but like a real run game where it's like, yeah, you got to stop Chase Brown. That Brown-Brooks combo is just tough. Like that's the other element here that could be interesting is if Scott Peters and Zach Taylor and Dan Pitcher can get together and figure out how to make this run game, obviously running backs coach Justin Hill, get this run game to where it matters, to where it's relevant, to where when you're preparing for the Cincinnati Bengals, you talk about the run game a little bit. We haven't had that yet. And I think that's another element of this. And I don't think it's as simple as, all right, well, just get better guards. I think the scheme has stunk as well. And how much of that was Frank Pollock? I think we're going to see this year. And so there are reasons to believe Joe can be better because of the run game as well. And that would lead to what? Less hits, more answers that don't involve Joe Burrow moving back there and trying to create time and create space and make plays. So we'll see if they can go that route as well. Up next, an NFL schedule maker admits he was wrong. He didn't go that far, but we'll get to it. And it involves the Bengals. We'll get to that next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox Miller. I'm James Rapien. And look, Andrew, when the NFL schedule came out earlier this month, I think everyone noticed right away. Thursday night in Baltimore for a 3rd straight year, a primetime game in Baltimore for a 4th straight year. Well, NFL Vice President of Broadcast Planning, Mike North, heard what Joe Burrow said about, hey, it'd be nice to get one of these in Cincinnati.
Playing in Baltimore for the 4th straight primetime year isn't ideal. Maybe we could get one of those in Cincinnati next year, please.
Talked with Jeff Hobson of Bengals.com and said, quote, it's fair, as in it's a fair gripe. It's not a 1 or 2 year sort of league where you fix every problem every other year or every 2 years. Once you start getting into the same thing 3 years in a row, 4 or 5 years in a row, whether it's a short week Thursday or on the road or opening on the road, when trends like that emerge, we probably have to adjust at some point. And Hobson also wrote that in a perfect world, North admits that he would wave his magic wand and not put the Bengals in Baltimore on Thursday night. Do you buy that the NFL actually feels that way and that they felt compelled or forced to put the Bengals in Baltimore on Thanksgiving night?
They can feel that way all they want until you're actually doing something about it. What does it matter? What's the quote there? He said, like, when trends like that emerge, we probably have to adjust at some point. Okay, but trends have emerged. This is the 4th season in a row. The Bengals have to travel to Baltimore for primetime. And like you said, the 3rd season in a row, it's on a short week. So we'll probably adjust at some point, but just not this year. Everyone, you know, I mean, what are we doing?
He basically guaranteed it's not going to happen next year.
Yeah.
No one cares about next year. It's this year. And I was thinking about this. The thing that's a real bummer to only have one home primetime game is how electric that atmosphere has been, how the Bengals have worked to get that atmosphere to an elite level. I think about the stripeout game. I think about the whiteout game. I think about all of the primetime games that the Bengals have had, and they just haven't had many here in town. You and me, we prefer 0 primetime games from a work standpoint.
Yeah.
But fans deserve primetime games. It's electric. The atmosphere is great. The Bengals have worked to make Paycor Stadium an awesome place at night. And so you only get one. That's a real bummer. They should have found a way to flip them. They should have. And I know they talked about Baltimore going to Miami, and that's why. Fine. Then don't make Baltimore go to Miami on Thursday night. Fix that. So then that both Thursday night games that the Bengals are playing in the AFC North primetime are at home, since they've had to go primetime on the road as often as they have. And going to the Ravens, who are far and away on paper, and the Bengals can change this, but on paper, they are the best team in the division. That they are going for their 3rd straight AFC North Division championship. No team has done that. No team has done that since the AFC North was created. The Bengals had the opportunity to do that in 2023. Obviously, Joe got hurt. They got off to that slow start. Then the wrist injury happened. But yes, it feels like they got the short end of the stick. And this is probably the last time we talk about it. But since Mike North made the comment, I figured we'd bring it back up.
Yeah. And to your point with fans and how hard the organization has worked to create the atmosphere that they have for the fan base, I don't think that can be overstated, because we never had, like, you think about the last 20, 30 years, coordinating a whiteout, coordinating, striping the jungle.
Yeah,
I don't know that would have ever worked as well as it has up to this point. And yeah, the atmosphere, it's at another level. You're not this cold concrete jungle, the whole, the doomer sort of feeling of the actual venue. People are excited, and that is such a reflection of that. And we don't get to see that. Fans don't get to experience that like they should. Also, by the way, one thing I will not do, because I see it out there, people talk about the Bengals record in prime time and on short weeks and against division and all the elements about, how dire it is, losing record. One thing I will not do is blame the schedule for the loss. That's just not what I mean. It's unfortunate. I don't feel great about it, but to sit here and, blame the schedule makers for what ended up happening, no. That's where coaches need to get better. That's where Joe Burrow needs to get better. Everybody needs to get better. No excuses from a schedule standpoint. I won't do it. I'm not buying into that.
Sure. I mean, Joe was awesome in Baltimore last year, by the way. He's been awesome. So he left the field. It's funny. All these primetime games, right? In 2022, it's Sunday Night Football. He scores the touchdown that gave them a 17-16 lead. Justin Tucker ended up kicking the game-winning field goal, but there's 2 minutes left, scores the touchdown, gives them the lead. The last time Joe Burrow had the ball, they had the lead. Gets hurt in 2023, leaves the game after throwing a touchdown that gave them a 10-7 lead in the second quarter. Last year, crazy back and forth game where he's literally on the field and they're going for 2 with a chance to win. They've been awesome games, and the Bengals could have won all of them. And so you got to go there and get it done. And we'll see if they can do it this year. Speaking of that, I played the schedule game on Cincinnati Bengals Talk where I predicted, made predictions for all 17 games. Where does Andrew agree? Where does Andrew disagree? This could be fun. We'll get to that coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He's Andrew Fox Miller. And over the past couple of years, as this show has existed, we've had you, Andrew, grade different things that I've done. And we're not going to have you grade today. We're not going to have you break out your teaching degree today. But we got to get your reaction, because I predicted the Bengals would go 12-5. I predicted that the Bengals, when I played the schedule game way too early after the schedule came out earlier this month, that they would sweep Baltimore. That means, beat them both times. That they would somehow, some way get to 12 wins. And I think a lot of people are going to say, man, you are way too optimistic. What are your thoughts? Did I nail it? Am I way off? What do you think?
So I'm not going to lie. At first, I thought 12-5 seemed too optimistic. However, after going through each game, I found myself with the same 12-5 record. Different way I got there, but the end result was the same. Now,
funny how that one works.
The biggest difference I do want to point out was that I had them starting the season 2-2. I think they actually win the season opener against the Browns, who'll be trying to figure out their quarterback, figure out their identity on their offense. But I'm expecting a slump in September that we're all too familiar with. Like loss to the Jaguars, loss to the Vikings, but a much needed primetime win against the Broncos that will ignite some momentum moving forward. A couple ugly things that we deal with, like a loss to the Jets, I predicted. But overall, successful season, 12-5 record on my end. I hate that I have the same record as you. I wanted to come in one, you're crazy, James, or come in and be even more optimistic, but it just didn't work out that way.
Did you have them sweeping the Ravens?
No, I had them losing. I had them winning the Thursday night game, and then I had them actually losing at home.
At home. Yeah, I could totally see that too. Yeah, I think that's interesting. What about Buffalo? That's the other big game. You have them winning that one or losing that one?
I did. Buffalo, I did have them winning before they would have that loss to the Ravens. So the odd one, loss to the Jaguars, loss to the Vikings, loss to the Jets and Bears. They hit a slump right before the bye, come back in with all wins except for that Ravens game.
Man. People will go into the bye so frustrated if that's
right, and I can feel that. We've lived that sensation,
Yeah, I think the reason I picked that, because I picked them to lose to Buffalo, is everyone's going to pick them to beat Buffalo.
Yeah,
they just think that the Bengals have Buffalo's number, and I think it's so interesting. I like that you picked like the Jets. You went off script a little bit with some of these. That's what I tried to do. That's why I have them sweeping the Ravens, because no one else is going to have that in these. These seasons go much differently than you believe. And I was like, in that you initially think, no one had the Ravens sweeping the Bengals in 2023. And then that's what happened. And because Joe was nicked up in both games, obviously didn't finish the second game. Like that stuff happens. So I think that the Bengals get it done. Interesting that we both finished on 12-5. Way too optimistic, just right. Time will tell. That's the beauty of the schedule game.
No doubt. I don't like it. I want us to be very different. We'll wait till next year, I guess, or maybe we'll do something mid-season. We'll see.
Oh, we'll do something before the season. It's May.
That's
we got
true.
Time.
That's
it's
true.
May. This is the way too early schedule game, but championships can be lost in May. So maybe the Bengals can make another move or two. Hint, hint. Up next, a former Bengal is making an impact, and it's going to change the way we view offensive linemen forever. That's next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox-Miller. I'm James Rapien, and Andrew Whitworth is making a big impact. Yes, the former Bengals great who was really, really awful in Super Bowl 56, so I won't mention that since he was with the Rams. I'm just kidding. But Andrew Whitworth helped create the NFL Protector of the Year award. And I love this. This is an offensive lineman award. I don't know why they didn't have this before, because they have Defensive Player of the Year, and defensive linemen usually win that. Like a lot of times they win that. Trey Hendrickson was second in that voting. Obviously, you have Offensive Player of the Year. That's never going to go to an offensive lineman. So Protector of the Year makes a ton of sense to me, Andrew. I love that they added this.
The title of the award is so obvious, but it's probably the best title for an award ever. Protector of the Year. I mean, that sounds like a movie franchise. Like I don't know. We got to come up with awards with names like that, James. What are we doing?
If I'm Amarius Mims, and you know me, like I think I try to think really, I'm very goal based. Not that I write them down or anything, but like, I'll just be like, oh, well, yeah, that's reasonable. I'd be thinking about this award. If I'm Orlando Brown Jr., I'd be thinking about this award. Like, oh yeah, I'm winning this thing. I'm winning this thing. It's those are two guys that should absolutely be thinking about it. Obviously, they're not the biggest named offensive linemen in the league. There are other linemen that are more accomplished. I know Orlando Brown Jr. certainly thinks he could be an all-pro at some point. Amarius Mims thinks the same way. Protector of the year, I'd be eyeing that. The Bengals star tackles, it makes a ton of sense in my mind to be thinking that way.
And you say they might not be the first names that come to mind, but the person they're protecting is one of the first names that will come to mind. Yeah. So right out the gate, they've got a huge opportunity just from that circumstance alone.
No doubt. No doubt about it. We'll see if they can get in the mix. I think both have the talent to do so. I think Orlando Brown Jr. was probably going to be an all-pro if he didn't get hurt last year. I mean, he was playing great. And Amarius Mims, sky's the limit for him. That's going to do it for us, though. Protector of the year. Congrats to Andrew Whitworth on getting that done. And who knows, maybe a couple Bengals offensive linemen will be in the mix. But for Andrew Foxmiller,